Welcome to the lABLEd podcast, a show about disability, illness and difference. I'm Lucy.
And I'm Alice.
And that's Lola.
Kaleidoscope identity, and this is who I'm meant to be. I'm just labelled me. I'm just labelled me.
Don't forget, in this episode, I might swear, Lucy might cry, and you can check out details of the trigger warnings on our website. Good afternoon, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to another episode of the lABLEd podcast. That was Lucy. I'm Alice, if you hadn't worked that out already. Luce, what have you been up to today?
General life has been tidying my bedroom because it was an absolute mess. So I've tidied my bedroom this morning to try and get my, like when you tidy your bedroom and it just clears your mind out. Just calms your mind. Just done a bit of that today. So that's what I've done today. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah. Not a lot. I was working. The idea of having a mind clear out sounds nice. But because we're still, I say we recently moved. I think we've been here 6 months now, but we haven't done anything like really. So we've got a lot of stuff that doesn't have places to live yet. So my version of tidying my bedroom is moving things and picking stuff up and going, oh, where can this live? I don't know. I'll put it back down where I found it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'd say I've got a mind clear out. I may not be able to find anything ever again. So,
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes.
So doing a episode this week with somebody that Lucy's a big fan of. Guys, We're really excited to introduce our guest for today. It's Jennie Berry.
Hello, everyone.
Lovely northern voice. Whereabouts are you at the moment, Jen?
I'm at home, which is Hartlepool. Lots of people haven't really heard of it before. It's right on the northeast coast. I'd like to describe it as like in between Middlesbrough and Newcastle.
Yeah, which I think if you've ever heard the Middlesbrough or the Newcastle accent, Hartlepool, that's very much a mix of the two, isn't it?
It's squashed in between. We're not full on Geordies, but
it's like she's squashed in between Ant and Deck. Is basically So I've followed Jennie online because Jennie is Jennie. How would you describe yourself? Because I follow you on Instagram and all over the place. I make you sound like an absolute stalker, and I've got binoculars in my bag.
You're not the first one either, Jennie. She's got several guests we've had on. She's like, I follow you online. Just online, though. I'm not sitting outside your house, I promise.
Oh, you'd be surprised. People do.
So you document your life as a disabled person. And I follow you online. And every time I read any of Jennie's content that she publishes, I'm like, I want to be her friend. Can I be her friend? In a non-weird way.
I think that's all this podcast is Lucy's attempt to just make more friends.
Yes, we're renaming it. Please be my friend. So yeah, and obviously when I was when we started out this podcast, Jennie was like, "Oh, you're doing a podcast." I was like, "Do you want to come on?" I was like, "Yes, please." And she said yes. I was like, "Yes." So we've worked really hard to get our diaries in sync. So Jennie, do you want to tell us a bit about your online presence and how that works, and why you decided to document your life online? Because it's a very brave thing to do.
Yeah, it's got its good parts and its bad parts, most definitely. So I run Wheelie Good Life, which is I just love a good pun. So that's how it evolved. So I was like, what on earth could I call this? And it started because I kept getting lots of questions from like my friends and family asking how my rehabilitation was going and how my physio was going and how my hydrotherapy was going. And, just when you just think, I'm sick of copying and pasting the same answer to everyone.
Yes, I'm in the process of waiting for a new guide dog, and I swear every 10 minutes a different person is saying to me, so have you heard anything? And I'm like, no, I told you I would tell you when I had an update. Leave me alone.
Yeah, definitely. And well, from that, it then evolved to people obviously knowing that I was now disabled, and like strangers started to add me online, like on my social media accounts, like on Facebook, and I'd always been quite private on Facebook, I'd say, in terms of I had like a ritual where if I wouldn't say happy birthday to someone on Facebook, you wouldn't be on my Facebook. So I was getting all these friend requests, and I thought, I'm just going to set up something where everyone can see, everyone's in the same place. I don't have to have things on private, and anyone can follow if they want to follow, and if they don't, they don't. So I just set it up, and then it was almost overnight. It blew up within a week. I think I had about 2,000 followers, and
Wow.
I don't know what I did. I think I'd put some hashtag on, and Mrs. Hinch found me. And she put me on a story, so that's
and it went
how it quickly
bananas. Yeah.
Wow.
And then from that, I thought, oh, people are actually really, really weirdly intrigued about what I'm doing with my life. So I thought, okay, I'll document things a bit more so, just more so about me. It doesn't even have to be about the disability. People just seem to enjoy it. So that's how it kind of evolved. And then, schools were wanting to work with me, and different brands were wanting to work with me, and it's all just kind of snowballed, and I'm just completely winging it, if I'm honest. It's not being planned out whatsoever.
I mean, you say it's not planned out, but every time I see anything, I'm like, yeah, I completely agree with you, Jen. Yeah, I completely agree with you, Jen. And it's not because that's not because like I think, oh, I really want to be your friend. It's more like but it's the fact that it's another disabled person that's had the thought to go, okay, I'm gonna coherently talk about this without making it sound like I'm just talking about a toilet or just talking about a drop curb. And I think, yeah, you are. I mean, I like to think that I come across as a good communicator, but you managed to get it in that little box in an Instagram story that makes you go, yeah. She's it there on the head there. Whereas so you can use one paragraph, I use about 5. That's the thing. And I just think it's so nice to see, from my point of view, a wheelchair user who is the same has the same sort of outlook as me. So if I want to do something, I'll try it, and if I fall on my face, I fall on my face. But at least I can say I've tried. Do you know what I mean? And that to me was something that was quite refreshing. And I do think it's extremely brave to go, this is my life, and the amount of comments and stuff you get from people who aren't necessarily very nice or I don't think I would have the stomach for it. Like I like to argue. That's the thing. If somebody says something, I'm like, bite your tongue. Whereas I can't. I'm just like, yeah, but just constantly. How do you deal with the people that just like are hell bent in just misunderstanding you?
Well, this is the issue that I have. So it's hard to be as concise and fit everything into an Instagram caption. Obviously, there's only a certain amount of characters that you can use within there, and I'd like to say I use as many characters as I possibly can. It's not like I ever post one line. I'm always posting paragraphs and paragraphs, and it's hard because I always try and say that this is me and this is my experience. And I would never say that I'm speaking on behalf of every disabled person on earth, because of course every disabled person has a different experience, just like every non-disabled person has. I couldn't possibly speak on behalf of anyone else. But it's often misinterpreted. People telling me that, my opinion is wrong and they've had this experience and therefore I'm wrong. And I just have to kind of gently remind people that their experience is just as valid as mine, and that no right or wrong. I'm simply just documenting the experiences that I've had. And I often find that, you know, when you were trying to describe, you know, seeing someone else online talking about similar things, that I've met lots of people online who just get it. That's what I describe it as, people who just get it. And I don't think you'd ever get it until you're in that position yourself. And you think, oh, actually, yeah, there's so many things that are obvious now. But when I was able-bodied, I don't know where I was walking around with my head in the clouds, but there's just so many things. And I'm just fascinated every single day when there's something new where I just think, oh, what on earth is this? What am I going to have to do now? And it's fascinating, and that's where the content comes from, because I've lived a life before where I never had to think about anything like this, and then now every day is at 100 miles an hour where there's 1,000,001 things to think about, and they're not always necessarily bad things. That's the thing. It's just trying to document it in a way what isn't shouty, isn't offensive, kind of.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult, isn't it? It's very difficult.
It really is. It really is. But as I say, I just try and remain as calm as possible, because some people do get really aggressive. Some people will like purposefully make more than one account to try and like troll me. And it's not just a case of I disagree with your opinion. It's a case of you're ugly, your legs are disgusting. How could anyone ever want to be with someone who looks like you? All of these kind of things. But I think that's just part of the parcel, unfortunately, with having such a prominent online account and putting yourself out there as much as I do. But there's the good definitely outweighs the bad, I'd say.
I think that sort of fear of social media is I'm definitely terrified. Like every time I put something, not even controversial, anytime I put something that is reflective of my opinion on Twitter, like my Facebook's generally kind of, it's like my family. It's not thousands and thousands of people. But yeah, but Twitter, it is that more public, and it is that more sort of, you just there's less barriers to protect yourself behind, and it is scary, because you do get these people suddenly like loom out of the blue, and you're like, whoa, all I said was, oh, it's really difficult to do this today, and I'm being attacked because I have an opinion or an experience.
I've been shouted at before because I eat sausages with brown sauce. Really? Is that the hill you want to die on? Like, just let me eat my sausages in peace, will you please? Like, I've cooked them myself. It's the first time I've ever done it, and you're arguing the toss over brown sauce over red. Really? Really?
I mean, I think it's the thing about the internet, isn't it? The internet is amazing because it's opened up communication to so many people, but it's also opened up communication to so many people. And some people, I'm not saying that people don't deserve to have an opinion, but some people, I feel like, choose not to educate themselves and choose not to be open-minded about other people's experiences, and use the internet as a place to bully people just because they can, and they can do it anonymously.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a big difference between having an opinion and being an arsehole, and people don't like they can never find that right balance. Like, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but there's a time and place to say things, and there's also a way to say things.
And it's the thing about written word, isn't it? You know, you write a text message or a message anywhere, and you go, why are they being like that? Why are they being? So then you have to ring them and go, is everything all right? We've fallen out, or are we still friends? And it's that, I think it's that, but compounded by like a million, because, you know.
Yeah,
definitely. Especially with the topic in hand, people are already ready to bite.
Yeah.
And really, really tread carefully sometimes. I mean, even yesterday I had someone who'd commented on my post saying that I need to stop looking at the negatives or something. All it was a video of me getting my wheelchair into my car, just showing people how I do it.
Yeah.
He said, you need to stop looking at I don't remember what it was. Stop looking at the negatives, silver linings and all that. So like, everything happens for a reason.
Is it was it cliche woman?
No, it was like deal with the hand that you've been dealt, or something like that. And I just replied saying, that's all well and good, but no amount of silver linings will change the fact that there is certain hardships in my life.
Well, and no amount of silver linings is going to get your wheelchair in your car.
Well,
like in a completely, if what you're doing is a video to show the practicalities of the things that you do differently now that you have a disability, as opposed to the things that you did before acquiring your disability, like, I don't see that as a focusing on the negative. I see that as, you know, it's the equivalent of a lady who's recently had a kid saying, I used to do this, this and this, and now I have to do it with a pram. It's just showing how your life has changed.
Well, yeah, definitely. Like, I'd posed it in a way like saying, this is why I'm unable to fill up my car with petrol on my own sometimes, because this is how much of a rigmarole it is. This is why sometimes I'm late for every event because of this. But like in a jokey, light-hearted way. And when I replied saying that, you know, nicely, well, in my opinion, I was being nice, that no amount of silver linings would change the fact that things are still hard sometimes. And as good as some things are in my life, there is still lots of things which are hard. And just because other people may have it worse than me doesn't mean that the way I have it isn't invalidated. Anyway, said guy went off on one saying that my responses were very hostile.
Of course, because they never like it, do they? When you talk, when you respond back with it, they just think, if I just send this and then I'll leave it, go and have my tea, and come back, and and it's, you just think, that's why I can't keep my mouth shut, Jen. That's. Yeah,
well, I'd said it in a nice way, like saying, yeah, I understand what you're saying. Like, of course, be positive, but in order for me to be positive, I need to also understand the negatives and work from there. Because if I go around with my head in the clouds saying, oh yeah, disabled people have it easy, then what on earth is going to change? And I just look like a tit.
I think it's bad for for people's mental health if they don't recognize difficulties and stresses and hardships in whatever their personal circumstances are. If you don't take the time to sometimes go, that was difficult, I'm having a bad day, I'm really sad today, and care for yourself, if whatever that care for yourself is, if it's, you know, talking to a therapist, having a gin, posting something on Instagram to raise awareness, like if you don't do that, then it's bad for your mental health. And I think that unfortunately the people who sit around and always say, oh, well, it could be worse, and, you know, silver linings and look at how bad other people have got it makes you then feel bad for your bad feelings, and that's only going to make you feel
also,
worse.
as well, that puts pressure on people with disabilities, disabled people, to go, I've got to be happy all the time, and I can't be sad. And we've said this before in previous episodes, haven't we, Alice, that, you know, we have days where we're absolutely fed up to the back teeth. I mean, I'm going through it. We're in the middle of a pandemic. I'm annoyed. I can't get my hair dyed. It's going ginger, and I'm like, it's like the top of that is like the lid that is on the frustration bottle at the moment. And I wake up some mornings and I have a cry, but I'm not crying because I'm disabled. I'm crying because, like, everything's a bit rubbish. Do you know what I mean? And you just think, get out. You say, I'm not crying because I'm disabled.
There's bound to be non-disabled people out there who are having a really rough time of it, and who are really struggling because they've got 3 kids at home and they're also trying to work from home, and they can't get their hair done, and their greys are showing, and it's ups, and they just wake up one morning and look in the mirror, and it's, you know, that last straw of when you suddenly realize how much of your roots are showing through or something that breaks you. And it's got nothing to do with their physical self or their, you know, sensory abilities or anything like that. It's entirely down to the circumstances and the mood that they're in at the time.
As disabled people, we don't go up to able-bodied people and go, oh, why are you sad? Is it because your legs work? But it is, isn't it? You wouldn't go. You wouldn't go. Are you sad because your legs work? like
Yeah. Oh, it must be really hard to see. I feel so sorry for
I'm
you.
sorry you've had to look at that. Like, yeah, it's amazing, really, how like we can't. You're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. You're damned if you're positive, and you're damned if you're sad, aren't you? Really?
Yeah, 100%. And like that's what this guy was saying. He was saying it's your way or the highway. You're not someone I want to follow, and I'm like, no.
Then don't follow
no
you
one
on.
is keeping me here. And
Yeah.
also, if you just read what you've just said, that it's your way or the highway, then take that into account. I'm saying that you've said something. I disagree with what you've said. That's fine. We are allowed to disagree because we are different people. It doesn't make you a bad person or me a bad person for not having that same opinion. But it's just not always kind of received in that way from some people online. Some people just get really irate, and also read things wrong, like the way that my first message was worded. To him, he's read it as if I was being hostile. But to me, I was just saying, no, I need to recognize the negative parts sometimes in order to move forward and to be positive. It's like having an infection and just getting on with your day-to-day life with an infection without treating the infection and addressing the problem.
Yeah, and then your finger falls off, and you're like, yeah. You're like, well, how's this happened? I just ignored it. Why didn't it go away?
It's all fine saying I just get on with my day, but unless you go and you get your antibiotics or whatever it may be, then get on with your day, that problem will go away. That problem's going to get worse. So that's the way I see it, is if, you address the hardships and you carry on with your day.
I absolutely
agree. And forget everything else, as if everything's all rose petals. And,
Well, and that's something you see people, within kind of mental health community saying time and time again, is that you can't ignore mental health, but people find it very hard to recognize and accept those kinds of health conditions where there's not a physical sort of symptom, where they can't say, oh, well, this is why this person is sad, this is why this person is ill. And so people will say, well, you need to just get on with it. And it's like, but mental illness, and even the far bottom end of the spectrum of just having a bad day sometimes,
of course,
that all comes from the way our brains work and the hormones we produce, and that's all sort of created by our experiences and interactions with the world outside as well as our inside bodies. And you can't invalidate that just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there.
Definitely. I think some people often forget that it's okay to feel sad sometimes. That's completely normal. It's okay to feel frustrated sometimes. Not every day is always rosy as you want it to be. And it's just really hard to be positive all the time. It's not something that's really viable to be positive every single minute of every single day. And I'd rather document the good, the bad, and the ugly online to show people that actually, that's just a normal person, and that's how they live their life, just like I might be as well.
I've lost count of the amount of times that I have shouted at my fingers, I've shouted at my hands, I've shouted at my feet because they just, like, have you ever seen me open a bag of crisps because it's painful? But I'm not shouting because I blame my body for not working. I'm shouting because it has taken me 10 minutes to do this job, and I would just wish my feet would cooperate. The amount of like having a conversation with my feet, like, for God's sake, was you just like, and my mum's like, you all right? But yes, I'm fine.
It's no different to sitting at your desk at work and trying to open an email and there's a problem with the attachment or something, and you're thinking, for God's sake, and you don't want to call IT because IT are going to talk to you like you're an idiot, and you just it's literally no different from that. It's a sort of daily frustration that people come across in their different daily lives. And nobody's ever been yelled at for, well, I mean, I'm probably wrong. I was going to say nobody's ever been yelled at for complaining on the internet about having tech problems, but I imagine the internet finds a reason to yell at everybody. But the principle stands.
Yeah. It's just amazing. So, you know, and you just think, there are some days where you think, oh, like getting in the shower in the morning, I can't just jump in the shower. It takes at least 15 minutes for me to get in the shower and turn it on. And some days, I get in the shower and I'm like, if I could walk, I would have been in and out of the shower by now. Like, yeah, it's
I hate those. I hate those.
Sometimes I'm like, I'm going to hold this wee in because it's a nightmare for me to get out of this building to go to the toilet across over there. So I'm going to wait until I actually need to go home. Then I'll go when I'm just at home. So I'm holding like everything for 3 hours just for the sake of thinking, I cannot be bothered for the faff. Everything's a faff.
I have banned my mum from asking me when we're out of the house if I need to go to the toilet, because if she asks and she hasn't checked whether there is toilet facilities available for me to use, and then we find there is no toilet facilities, if I go, no, I'm all right, thanks, and then I think, actually, yeah, I could probably could.
She's made you think about
she's
it.
Not allowed to ask me, so sometimes she'll go. Sometimes, even now, she'll go, "Do you need the toilet?" And I'm like, "What? What did I say, Shaz? What did I say? What have I said to you?" And then she's like, "Sorry." But yeah. So you just said to yourself, it's like little tiny things, isn't it? And then you think, no wonder I'm knackered by the end of the day. No wonder I am so tired. And it's like, you know, you speak to non-disabled people and you think, the classic one of, oh, what are you tired for? You sit down all day. Like, you think, only you knew. Only you knew, because it's not just sitting there. It's quite tiring sitting down all day, to be honest, isn't it? Like, it is exhausting. But it's not just the sitting down, it's the transferring and the moving and my mum always says, there's a lot to getting Lucy up, ready and dressed in the morning to look like she's ready to go for work. People on the outside look at me and go, oh yeah, there's Lucy, look, yeah, she's arrived for work today. But actually they've not seen, like, mum helping me out of bed in the morning, mum helping me in the shower, mum helping me get dressed, mum, you know, and, like, you know, getting all those little things that people take for granted done before I've even, like, started to open the laptop and get ready for work. It's quite, and then when people do see it, they go, oh, I never realised. And I think that what you're doing, Jenny, is you are shining a little bit of a light onto the kind of little things that disabled people have to consider. It's like a military operation trying to leave the house.
It really is. And you know, like when I go places in the car, I'll always think, right, let's try and consolidate all of my jobs into one day so that I don't have to go out and get my wheelchair in and out the car 7 times, like, throughout the week. I can just do it all on the one day. And I'll even do things like I'm hungry. Where can I go? That's a drive-through so that I don't get my wheelchair in and out the car.
Well, that's the best excuse I've ever heard to go through to it. That is like the yeah, so I'm not getting my chair out of the car today. I'm just going to sit here.
It really is. Like, I really limit the food options. I'm limited to, like, McDonald's, Costa Coffee, and, like, the odd KFC, whereas we go into some really nice, like, delis and things, and out on all that. It's just because I'm lazy. I can't be bothered with that.
That's brilliant. I love that.
I think that's something else, though, that, like, a lot of non-disabled people don't necessarily kind of comprehend, is that there is also an element as, like, you're disabled, but you've also got a personality, and, like, I'm a late person, and people are always like, it's great because I can blame it on my guide dog, or I can blame it on having some accident of walking into something or tripping over something, which I, you know, absolutely do, but also I'm just a very late person because I have the tendency to stand there and go, oh, what knickers shall I wear today? And just kind of stare and rummage. And, like, I'm sitting here now just playing with my hair and just like, oh, look at the wall. Isn't it pretty?
Can you concentrate, Alice, please?
Yeah. Essentially, that's what it's like in my head the whole time. And so I mean, I say that's not what it's like in my head the whole time. What it's actually like in my head the whole time is there's a tiny little anxious voice going, oh my God, what if this happens? And oh my God, what if that happens? But I pretend that I'm just, gazing into the moonlight or whatever. but like that's why I'm late. I'm late because I don't want to get out of bed. And when I do get out of bed, I overthink everything and I get distracted by my phone and I can't decide what shoes to wear, and I was supposed to meet you 20 minutes ago, and so I'm now freaking out that I was supposed to meet you 20 minutes ago, and then I've got to sort the dog out, and then the dog decides she's got to have a poo in the street on the way, and actually the dog having a poo only delays me by about 14 seconds. It's everything else. But I'm like, oh, sorry I'm late, I don't see so good.
Classic.
But it is, people don't think about those. I think lots of able-bodied people.
I think as well, people when if they don't know me and they first meet me, I don't know what it's like for you, Jenny and Alice, but they meet me and they're often surprised that I take the mickey out of myself. They're often surprised I've got a sense of humor. Like how on earth can you joke about something so like. It's just awful. How could you joke? But like, if you don't laugh about it, you cry. So,
I'd much rather you made jokes about being in a wheelchair than some like fat white 50-something comedian on stage in some dive bar making jokes about people in wheelchairs.
Yeah, but they're often. And I love making people laugh. When I know I'm making people laugh, I'm like, yeah, I've got them. Look, they're laughing. And I think, like, I can remember going to the pub quiz, and one of my friends, we'd not known each other very long, and we'd been introduced. I must have been talking to him for about 20 minutes, and I was on the bombarding stage of the getting to know me. So it's like, get all the wheelchair jokes out first before he can. Like, I was joke, and he was laughing, and he looked at me and he goes, I've never met anybody like you before. I said, what do you mean? And he goes, well, so gobby and like unable to come up for air, because I was just like, here's another one. But I think it's a cross between like a defense mechanism and a well, if I make a joke about it, then you're going to know I'm all right with it, kind of thing. But I do quite like talking about myself to other people. You may have noticed, but it's that kind of. But there are always some people. I'm not saying everybody, but some people are surprised that I have like brain cells. They're surprised, I am switched on and I understand everything, because usually we get, does she take sugar, or talking above my head? Do you get that, Jenny?
Yeah, quite a lot. Like when I tell people, they'll say, "Oh, so what is it you do?" And I'll say, "I've got a degree." I'm like, "Oh, what? Oh, right, okay. So was that before the wheelchair, or?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it was before the wheelchair." I'm like, "Oh, right, yeah." And I'm like, "But I can still get a degree with or without."
Do you feel like saying, right, sign me up for something now, just so I can prove a point?
Yeah.
Was that a shock to you when you went from being able-bodied to being in a wheelchair? Was it a shock to you the way that people started talking to you and started treating you? Or do you think, was it something you were aware of before? Was it something you'd kind of expected?
No, not at all. Obviously, I'd like to say that I understood about accessibility, but in reality, I didn't. I knew not even 1/10 about accessibility as to what it was really like. It was the perception side of things that I had no clue about. I was just so used to, walking anywhere, walking down the street and no one batting an eyelid at me. Whereas now I can't go anywhere without people glaring at me constantly, whether it's nice, like patronizing smiles or people like gawping at me. I can't go anywhere or do anything without people staring. The only place I can go is in my car, because no one knows that I'm disabled when I'm driving my car, because that's another thing what people assume, that I couldn't possibly be driving around in a car what looks normal.
Yeah, they think like it should be like a transformer car that's got like calls and grab hands and
yeah, I don't know what they expect to be pulling up, but all of the time, literally, I'll pull into Asda and people will be glaring at me as if to say, "Why are you parking there?" People tut sometimes, and I'll just wait and stare it out and think, "Just you wait until I start lobbing half my wheelchair out, until I pull these wheels out of this car. Then I can't wait to see your face drop." And it always does. And
yeah, like, I wasn't. It wasn't me doing the tutting.
No, I wasn't thinking that. Like, I get what you think. Putting at me.
Yeah, I get a lot of that because obviously when I'm sat in a car and I've not got my chair, I look like I'm just sat on a normal chair. But my mum has to help me get in and out of the car. So sometimes you get like people like glaring through the window, not making not hiding it. And I'll just say to my mum, just do it, just get the chair up and get it out really slowly because I really want to make these people feel bad. All right there, Sandra, like that kind of.
It's really interesting because as somebody who, like, my disability is not immediately apparent, I have had people, like, I will be out with my guide dog and people will ask me if I drive. And I'm like, yeah, no, I do the pedals and the dog does the wheel. Or like, and yes, we get the, people tutting if we park in a disabled spot, and then we get the dog out and people are like, oh well, that's it. But it's really strange for me because I don't think I don't, as a sort of physically mobile person in that respect, I don't think I get stared at in the same way. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's just I can't see the people staring.
I was about to
say. But no, Lucy, this is another one of those times where I'm allowed to make jokes about me being blind.
Sorry.
You're allowed to make jokes about you being in a wheelchair.
Stay in my lane.
Yeah, I'm the one who swerves out lanes because I can't see the lines on the floor.
That's your excuse.
And it's really weird to me because I feel like, I don't know, if I see somebody just walking their dog in the street, I'm like, oh, that person's got a dog. Look at that dog. It's so excited. If I see a person in a wheelchair, it's like, oh, that person's sitting down. It's like, I'm almost amazed that people are more gawping at people in wheelchairs than, and again, maybe it's just because I'm not seeing it, but I don't feel as though there is the same shock for people. And again, that might be partly because people quite often assume I'm training the dog or something like that. But
I could tell you numerous occasions where I have been minding my own business in a supermarket and I've been stood like, this is the last time it happened, was before the lockdown, so about a year ago. And I was stood in a supermarket minding my own business. My mum had wandered off, which is, first of all, the biggest thing. If anybody wanders, this sort of stuff never happens to me when I have an able-bodied person with me, because it's almost like they're my force field.
Well, that says a lot, doesn't it?
They keep the idiots at bay. Like they get, idiots come nowhere near me if I've got an able-bodied person with me. But so she'd wandered off, and I was minding my own business, looking at the cheese. And this man.
Sorry, that made me snort.
The cheese.
Just you and your cheese obsession today.
This week, I think. Yeah. So this man, I was looking at something, minding my own business, and I hadn't even clocked this fella, and out of the corner of my eye, he comes up to me. He'd got two kids in a trolley, one of which wasn't sat in the seat thing for the kid. And he went, ugly and disabled.
Jesus Christ.
And I just went, and he wandered off before my brain had even had a chance to go, hang on. What did he just say? Like, God, by the time I realised what he'd said, and I was just like, what? I mean, if I was ugly, if I was able-bodied and ugly, would you wander up to somebody and go, ugly?
Ugly and her legs work.
Like, I was just like, and my mum came back and I was like, Mum, some random man's just gone, ugly and disabled. And she's like, you know what? Sometimes I tell her things and she's like, are you sure? Like, are you sure?
Honestly, nothing surprises me at all. You could tell me anything and I'd say, yeah, I believe you.
It's just, and my friends, I don't notice people staring really now at all because I've had my disability from the get-go. So I was born prematurely, and so I've never been able to walk and never will be able to walk. So when I was a kid, I used to notice it, and I used to go, Mom, why are these people staring at me? And my mum would go, it's because you're beautiful. It's not. It's because I'm different. But I don't notice it now. But if I'm with other people who haven't been out with me before, they'll go, have you seen that person staring at you, like proper gawping? And sometimes friends of mine will go, oh yeah, look, he likes you. And I'm like, you sure he likes me? And he's like looking at me because he likes me and not just generally gawping.
It's really mad. Like, you look at the words you just used to describe that situation. It's like people aren't looking at you because you're pretty. People are looking at you because you're different. But you're not different. There's how many people in the world who use wheelchairs? It's not like you're a flying unicorn. Like, is it really worth staring at? Have they never seen a person using a wheelchair before?
It is just absolutely. You do think to yourself, like, I would never dream of staring at anybody, and if I am staring at anybody, I don't know I'm doing it, which makes me wonder: do these other people know they're doing it?
I don't think people do all the time, and because do you think that these people go home and tell them, it's like, oh, I saw a person in a wheelchair today? Is it that?
Yeah. I genuinely do. There's certain levels. There's like the levels of people who just randomly will just do like a little scared glance as if they're going to catch something.
Yeah.
Then there's people who like long stare. Then there's people who stare, then you catch eyes and then they'll quickly look away. Then there's the people who will like stare and start to like hover around you, as you say, like in the cheese aisle, they'll be like hovering, and you can tell that they're just itching to do something or ask you something, whether it be touch you, which is a common one, which people always think I'm lying about, but people touch me all the time, or ask me like a really, really random question. So like the whole grabbing the back of the wheelchair thing is more common than people think. People always say, oh no, I wouldn't dream of touching someone in a wheelchair without asking. And I'm like, no, it happens all the time. People just grab the back of me. And then
people do it to me. They grab my free arm when I'm there with the dog and just it's this way. And I'm like, no, you go first and the dog will follow you. Like, don't try and they think they're guiding me.
And there is a certain way to guide a human, isn't there? There is a certain knack of doing it, isn't there? Am I right?
Well, yeah, there is. But there's also if I've come up to you in the middle of Mesco's and said, excuse me, can you tell me where the beans are? And they grab me and go, I'll show you.
Me.
I go, no, it's okay. You go first. I'll follow you. And it's, that is me having to stop them and say, oh, no. This is. And what I really want to do is say, don't fucking touch me. Who do you think you are? You're just grabbing me. You wouldn't grab a random 30-year-old woman in Tesco's if she didn't have a disability, would you?
No. I have had it where like they've picked me the back of my chair up and moved it like left or right, like I'm some sort of furniture that's in the way of the aisle. Like, oh, excuse me, can I just like?
Yeah, definitely. Or they'll do the whole like reaching over thing. They'll be like this over the top of me, and I'll have like I'm always just in a sea of armpits all the time.
And it's even worse in the summer when people have got their shirts off. Men have got their shirts off.
Yeah. Oh. I don't even bother going to the reduced section because it's like over the top of me, and I'm like, hello, I'm right here.
But... And I think the whole COVID situation has made accessibility and getting into places and out of places. I know that you've had this, Jenny, where it's just made it nigh on impossible to get in and out of places independently.
Yeah, 100%. It's hard enough at the best of times. And now that COVID's, I just feel like COVID's used as like a blanket excuse for so many different things. People are like, oh, well, COVID, so we've had to put this in place instead. And I'm like, what about human rights? Never mind. Just COVID quickly put in place instead.
I've definitely experienced like one-way systems nightmare because my mum doesn't understand, arrows because she's not. So when people are like, "Oh, you're not supposed to come down this aisle this way," I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'll just explain that to my Labrador, shall I?" But I'm interested to sort of hear examples of, as a wheelchair user trying to get out there, how, what things have been put in place that are in theory supposed to be keeping us safe, but are actually barring a bunch of people from using services and things.
Oh, there's loads in my experience. So, like, for instance, my local town centre, at each entrance, they'll only have one like accessible door, so like an auto door. And they've split, there's like 6 doors, but only one automatic one. And they've split the doors into 3 in and 3 out. Now, obviously, the way maths works, 1 means that I can enter the building, but I'm not allowed to exit the building. Well, I am, but I can't physically do it because of the big, heavy glass doors, and I can't, no matter how heavy they are, they're not wide enough for me to fit through. So there's an occasion where obviously I'm sticking to the arrows as best I can, but then when it gets to the exit, I do have to cross over to go and use the automatic doors. And people are walking into the centre telling me, you're not allowed to exit through this door. As I'm wheeling through, and I'm saying, do you not comprehend the situation that's going on right now? I'm disabled. This door is put here for disabled people, and I'm told I'm not allowed to use it. I have to use the door over there, which I cannot even fit through because the door frame is too small, regardless of how heavy the door is. But yet they're still telling me that COVID means that I'm not allowed to exit the door, which is being put there for my purpose in the first place.
And I think as well, when these decisions were made about access for COVID, being COVID secure and COVID safe, I think when those decisions were made, everybody assumed that disabled people were shielding and couldn't possibly be going out anywhere. So why would we need to? And I saw pictures of, outside Argos of cordoning off all the disabled bays because to help with queuing. And you think, well, where do I park? Look, if I want to go to Argos to pick something up that I need, during shielding, doesn't matter what it is. How am I supposed to park the car? How am I supposed to park the car to get in your shop in the first place?
I mean, and for me, you can sort of rewind it back even further than that. So, the example that you just gave, Jenny, is that you couldn't get into places in your town centre because there's only one accessible automatic door. Why is there only one accessible automatic door? Well, if 10 wheelchair users wanted to go in there at the same time, they'd have to queue down the street so that you could go. It's just ridiculous.
Well, yeah, this is the thing, because when you speak to these large organisations and explain that, you're not the only disabled person on earth, the response always is, well, actually, we don't get that many disabled people using our facilities. And I say to them,
I wonder why that is. Yeah.
Why do you think disabled people do not come here? Because you don't accommodate for them. Oh, right. Well, yeah. I just don't think there's a market for disabled people. And when I tell them that 1 in 5 people within the UK have some form of disability, like, oh, really? Oh.
And then on the other hand, you've got people complaining about all of the money and benefits that we're getting from the government. And it's like, well, open up services to us so that we can spend all of that generous benefit we're being given.
Yeah, that you think we've got, because, apparently we're money bags. Do you know what I mean? And
what you're actually doing is giving us bags and bags of money and then isolating us. So all that we do is sit on it.
Save it.
And
yeah.
doesn't
doesn't make
No,
sense.
And when I think as well, when people realise the spending power of a disabled person and their families, because that's the thing with the spending power of disability, it's not just a disabled person it affects. It's like the family, because like if a family know that okay, they've got a child in a wheelchair and they know that they can go to this pub or this shop or this town centre and get into everywhere, visit everywhere, they are more likely to come back because they know that the access is good and then they know that the toilets are available and that kind of thing. It just takes all that stress that we were talking about before of, is there a toilet available? Where can I park the car? If they know it's there, they're going to keep coming back, aren't they?
Exactly. And it's because that's not the norm. Accessibility is not the norm, then you're going to be going back to the same places that time and time again, simply because they are accessible, and so they're the only places you can go to. So of course that's where you're spending all your money.
100%. It's always the same with me and my friends. So say if there's like 10 of us and we're organising to go out for, that's 10 birthdays we go to, 10 of us going out for meals. And there's not a single time where I would ever go anywhere that didn't accommodate me. So that's like, 100 meals worth what companies are potentially losing out on because of the fact that they're not providing for that one person.
Absolutely.
And I suppose when you hit them with the stats, and they can't you can't argue with facts and figures, can you really?
Well, and it always comes down to people's bottom line, doesn't it? So if you start explaining to people about how it's costing them or they're losing out on profits, that's when people start going, well, maybe I should change, my approach.
Definitely.
It's human rights aren't important to people. No, profits are important to people.
Unless money's involved, as you say.
Jenny, you've been involved with lots of raising awareness of different sort of topics. So I know that you've done the Red Cord campaign and the petrol stations. You've been doing a lot of work with the petrol stations. How easy would you say it is once you start making a noise about these sorts of issues? Would you say it is to get other people on board? And by other people, I mean able-bodied people. Do you think it's quite easy? Do you think it's easier now than it was when you first started your Instagram account, or do you still face a bit of an uphill struggle?
I think it's easier now, more so because I have got a lot of backing from both disabled and non-disabled people online. But in the beginning, it was just the way that I pose things online. It's not a way of me saying, oh, this is the worst thing on earth. How could they possibly be doing this? How could they possibly be tying cords up? I posed it in a way and said, hey, have you seen this? This is a red cord. Do you know what it does? Do you know what it's for? Have you seen it tied up like this before? Have you tied up one of these before? In all honesty, I've probably tied one up before, not really thinking what it's for or what could help someone. I hold my hands up. Why don't we all consciously make an effort to untie them in future? Because now we all know what they're for. And now we've all got our thinking caps on, realising actually I shouldn't tie that up because it has a knock-on effect for the person after me who may need to use it. So I always go in with that approach saying, like, no one's the bad guy here. You might have done things in the past which haven't been the best decision, but that's not from a place of spite or anger. It's from a place of just lack of understanding. And it's my job to give people that understanding, and then move forward. And, I'm not here to call anyone out or say, I can't believe that you've, tied up a red cord before. I can't believe you've randomly pushed someone in a wheelchair before. I can't believe you've asked this question before. It's just a case of understanding, just understanding disability just a bit more. And it's been a hard battle trying to pose it in that way, but I think that's the way that people seem to understand and want to understand more, when it's not as if they're being told off. It's more so, hey, this is a bit crap, isn't it? Why don't we all do something about it?
And I think as well, being able to have that being able to own that space where you allow people to go, yeah, okay, I've done this in the past. What should I do in the future?
Yeah.
Without shaming anybody is a
Yeah.
great way to start and build that understanding. So I often do a ask me anything thing online and on my Twitter, and it's off. People often go, "What, you mean anything? I can ask you anything." I'm like, "Yeah," because if it stops you from doing things that actually aren't that productive towards somebody with a disability, then I'm all for it, and I will be as open and as honest as you want me to be. But just this breaking down that barrier to go, all right, don't be so frightened of asking the question, because I can see it in people's eyes sometimes where they want to ask me a question, but they don't know where to start, so they just don't bother asking. And that's, to me, is a missed opportunity, because I think, well, if you're not asking, then you're constantly going to be thinking, well, man, I can't do. Can I do that? Is that all right to do that? Is that all right to ask that question? And I know that some people go, well, we really shouldn't have to do that. But I think it's a great way of not being so standoffish and going, yeah, I understand I understand that an able-bodied person does not understand what it's like to be disabled. Why would you? You could argue that I don't understand what it's like to be able-bodied. But I wouldn't hold that against you. But just be mindful. It's making people mindful of it, isn't it, really?
Yeah, 100%, definitely.
I think my issue with it is that the onus always seems to fall on the disabled person to take that first step. It's, Lucy being open to people asking her questions that they're embarrassed or worried about asking. It's, you, Jenny, having to think about the way that you communicate in your posts so that you don't cause people to be defensive. And I mean, what I'd really want to see would be that, from early sort of education and things like that, kids are being educated and made more aware of these things, so that actually, instead of having to come to Lucy with those questions, those same handful of questions, well, how do you do this? How do you, X, Y, Z? That they already have a bit more of an understanding and are a bit more informed, so that the questions that they ask are just a little bit less kind of degrading and a little bit less obvious sometimes. Like, I definitely get asked really stupid questions sometimes. And it's, I understand that if you don't have any concept of what life with a visual impairment is like, that's fine. But I do also think, perhaps think it through. Like, don't have a go at me for walking the wrong way down the aisle in the supermarket because my dog's not following the arrows because she's a dog and dogs don't understand arrows. And it's just that if people were a bit more educated and aware already, then I wouldn't have to come against those little daily things that can be really just exhausting. And
I think as a disabled person, you do develop. I don't know about you, Jenny, but I know I, over the years, have developed an extremely thick skin when it comes to stuff, that people say to me. And I'm not just talking about online stuff. I'm talking about people just generally being thoughtless. You develop that. You're a bit like an armadillo, really. Because you think if it's a thick skin, it doesn't bother me. But there is we're only human, and there are times where one little comment will get in, and you go, I've had enough. Can I get off now, please? Can I get off this ride? But you do develop a thick skin. Did you find, Jenny, that you had to develop a thick skin rather quickly?
Yeah, I'd say so, because in all honesty, I mean, there's plenty of disabled people in my town, but I didn't know anyone my age, a manual wheelchair user, a female, I don't know anyone local to me who was similar in that regard. So people were just like really, they just couldn't grasp it, and they were like, wow, this is front page news almost, and I had so many questions, and I was just a bit like, oh, I don't even know what to say. I felt like I was going over the same things over and over and over again, a bit like a performing monkey in a respect. And I think a lot of, when I speak about this online, there's certain elements which I'm happy to share with people, and then there's other elements where I just think it is exhausting, as you say, when people are constantly asking you, what's the matter with you? Why are you like that? What's the matter? And you just think, that person's just came up to me and asked me that question. I've had to just relive one of the most traumatic experiences of my life. And then they're just getting on with their shopping whilst I'm sat here thinking, now I feel shit. So I think it's important to remember that the onus isn't always on the disabled person to give everyone the answers. The onus should be on non-disabled people to go out there and do a little bit of research themselves too. And as I say, and as you say, Alice, I think the main way to do that would be education at a lower level, so that people are brought up understanding different disabilities and understanding that it's not such a big thing to be scared of, because that's the only way I can describe it. Some people are just simply scared. They don't know if they're saying the right thing or doing the right thing. People physically jump out of the way when they see me, as if they're going to catch something. And I just think, how, like, where has this evolved from? Where has this came from, other than the media and lack of education?
I think for me, I was a media student at university, and for me, I think when I realised that actually one of our biggest problems as a disabled community is the way the media portrays us. For me, that was incredible. Like, it made me feel so sad, because I was like, but I love like films and television, and yet it's the films and television that is the main thing that go, oh yeah, disabled people, there must be a villain, you know, like James Bond. You look at James Bond and like, or any villain really in cinema, and it's like they've got a disability or they're disfigured somehow, and you just think, oh, here we go again. Like,
you're a villain, you're to some pitiable victim, or you're just not there. You're just not there at all.
Definitely.
And when we are there, able-bodied people are cast in our roles. But that's a whole different.
That's a topic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it does make me feel. It did make me feel. I mean, there's not, put crying over spilt milk. But when you realise actually the media is half to blame for the struggles that I face, you think, well, that's a bit of a kick in the teeth. Just show us as normal people, And there are changes happening, but it's very, very slow. Like, they'll just pop up in Coronation Street. You're like, oh, there they are. I remember watching Bake Off. Where was it Bryony? And she had like one arm or like one arm and some fingers that weren't there, and nobody made reference to it. And I was like, this is amazing, like this. And I was like, why am I so overjoyed about the fact that Bryony hasn't got a hand and nobody's really mentioned it? It's like, what a sad state of affairs. Like, I noticed it because, like, to some extent they're similar to me, and you kind of go,
well, and I imagine a lot of the able-bodied viewers at home noticed it as well and went, why isn't anybody talking about it? And then after a few episodes, they realised they weren't noticing it anymore. And actually, they realised that Bryony is just Bryony, and she also happens to have this disability, but look at this cake and this bread and this pastry.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem. I think able-bodied people, I'm not like saying everybody, but a lot of able-bodied people, they need before we it's almost like before we start anything, I just need to know what has happened here.
What's the deal with you?
Tell me so my brain can compute, and then we can get on with everything.
Can't go any further unless you've disclosed. But then sometimes people get really, really aggressive when you say, I've told people before, complete strangers. I was at the bus stop one time and some bloke came over and was like, what's the matter with you then? And I said, nothing. What do you mean, what's the matter with me? So, well, why are you in a wheelchair? Like, what's the matter with you? I was like, what's the matter with you? What's your medical history?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, yeah, but you can you walk at all? And I went, no, not at all. What, like not even a little bit? You can't even stand up? I said, no, I can't. Well, are you gonna tell us then? Like, tell us. And I'm like, this is really strange. And the more you ask me to tell you, the more I'm gonna say no. It's just really, really odd. There's times where I just think, yeah, I'm more than happy to tell you because it's coming from a place of genuine interest. And then there's other people who are just like really weirdly curious, and just want to quickly get that question answered and then off the go. They're not interested in anything else to do.
Their brain gets itchy and they go, I must scratch this itch. Yeah. And then would you say, I mean, when I was at university, we had about three or four made up stories about why I was in a wheelchair, because my friends got so sick of because they would always ask my friends and never me, like, what's wrong with your friend?
Also, there's also, I think, an element, sorry to interrupt you, Lucy, but like something that Lucy and I probably experienced that you haven't, Jenny, is that our stories are really boring. Like, we were just born like this.
I mean, Jenny, you could tell us that you've had your legs bitten off by a tiger, and we'd be like, wow, really? Like, how big was the tiger? Like, nothing to do about.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's really quite. Like, I was born early, and then lack of oxygen, and this happened, and this happened, and it wasn't like instantaneous. I came out of the womb and I was in a wheelchair. It was like.
You think you came out of the womb and then your mum had another couple hours of labour and then the little baby chair came out.
But it's not that exciting. So my friends would come up with ridiculous stories, and I would sit at a distance and I could see their faces drop as if to go, oh my God, really? And I have to go over and go, he's having you on. They're having you on. Like, none of that happened.
Yeah.
Oh, but you do think to yourself, do you really need to know this? Like, it's literally the most boring bit of the story.
Yeah. It just bears no relevance to anything. No. Like, they're just, in that sense, if it's an accident, it just seems to be dragging up the crappiest part, and then they've got their fix, which is what's the matter with you. And then go and carry on.
What are they going to do with that information once you've gone and they've gone home?
They're not interested in the disability part. They're just interested in the juicy bit, which they seem to find juicy. When in actual fact, I'd rather say, "Hey, I'm disabled, and this is the accessibility issues that I have, or this is the weird perceptions that people have of me. Can I tell you a bit more about that? Not my accident and the trauma that I had to live through, and the months and months after of like adapting and changing my life." But
I'd much rather talk to people about the books that I enjoy reading, not the weird changes, accessibility things I have to go through to be able to read.
Yeah,
that bit's not interesting.
No. Yeah,
I know. I always say I'm far more than just four wheels. That is the thing. And when people will be like, "Oh, so you're like interested in X, Y, Z?" I'm like, "Yeah." Believe it or not, I talk about other things other than my wheelchair and mobility aid.
And I think that's the really cool thing about what you're doing, Jenny, is that you are trying to change those perceptions by showing people kind of your real life and your lived experiences, rather than, I know that sometimes me and Lucy can get a bit ranty, and there's definitely people in the disabled community, who are sick of telling people and answering those questions. But there is an element of, unfortunately, the society we live in, people don't know. And so there are people out there who are going to ask those questions, and kind of what you're doing is actually offering a really accessible, easy to understand, and not sort of overly aggressive and not overly challenging.
And not
definitely.
I know you're also not falling into the camp of being like inspiration porn either. You're not putting inspiration porn.
It's a fine line to walk.
It is a very fine line. You're not being inspiration porn, but you're not going, "Oh, poor me, isn't this terrible?" You're just going, "This is what it is." Make your own mind up as to whether it's like what you think, and of course not everybody's always going to agree with you, because that would just be ridiculous. But
do you think your experience of going from being a non-disabled person who didn't really have that experience and that awareness to becoming a disabled person is kind of what has helped you and sort of led you to want to educate and raise awareness like this?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I think more so because when I look back, I just think I must have just been completely oblivious. Completely and utterly oblivious. It's not that I didn't care. It's just that I didn't have
people live in their own bubbles, don't they?
I was like almost innocently ignorant to it. It wasn't done on purpose. It just, I'd never had a disabled family member. I'd never had a disabled friend. Didn't know anyone who was disabled, so I never had reason to go out of my way to understand it or educate myself around it. And as you say, it wasn't something that I was taught in school. It was not something that was ever touched upon, really, not to my recollection.
I can remember when I was at school in sort of sixth form age, we were made to go to the local mainstream school and sort of integrate with the mainstream kids.
I thought you were going to say that, like, they took you to the mainstream school to educate you about able-bodied people and how not to, like, discriminate against able-bodied people.
No, but it was like, I can remember the first time we went. It was only like for an afternoon on a Wednesday. And the lesson that they like mixed us in was like so boring. I can't even remember. I think it was social studies or something. And I didn't really understand it. But I can remember walking down the corridor and it parting like the Red Sea. As we were walking down this corridor, me and my friend were in a wheelchair, and it just went deathly quiet. And I was just like, talk about making you feel awkward. Like, it like,
yeah.
And it was like, thanks for making room. So this massive long corridor. And it just went quiet. You think, oh God.
I think it's that, like you said, Jenny, it's that innocently ignorant because you just don't have contact. And that's why I appreciate that there is a purpose and a place for sort of specialist schools, but I think that it's not a good thing. Not for it's terrible. It's probably a terrible thing for the disabled students, but for the able-bodied students, having disabled kids in their classes and in their school is a good thing because it helps them to realise these are just their peers. These are just normal people who also happen to have additional needs.
Yeah.
It definitely, when I went to mainstream college to study media, it took about 3 weeks before anybody would speak to me. And do you know how it happened? How we broke the ice eventually? We were filming outside in the town centre in the middle of a street, and I was going over a cobbled street, so the cobbles were like wobbling my chair, and my shoe was loose. I didn't realise, but my shoe was loose. My shoe fell off. And I was like, well, I can't reach down on my foot to put my shoes on. How am I going to do this? So I went to this who became my friend, went over to this other student and said, I'm really sorry, but can you put my shoe back on? And he was like, he went, what? I said, I need you to help me put my shoe back on. And he was like, what do you mean? But I said, well, it's come up, my shoes come off, and I can't walk around town with one shoe on. And he like looked at it, so I passed him my shoe, and I was like, well, can you put it back on? He was like, and he went, is there a shoe shop we could, I said, just put the shoe on.
Oh my God.
Put the shoe on my foot. Anyway, he put the shoe on my foot, and he got
You don't need a professional to put your shoe on for you.
He didn't know what to do, did he? It was like, I was like,
yeah.
Okay. So I showed him how to put my shoe on, talked him through it step by step. And he got down on one knee and he was putting my shoe back on my foot. This woman walked past and was like gawping, because of course she was gawping. He was putting my shoe back on in the middle of the street. And he just looked at me and he went, street theatre love, when it was Cinderella like this. And we went back to college and he went, he said to his other mate, I knew that there was like this awkwardness, and he went, yeah, it's all right. She's all right. She's not going to cry about her disability. And after that, everybody then started to warm up a little bit to me. But it took me to lose my shoe in the middle of the town centre and him put it back on for me for people to go, yeah, she's not so bad after all. It's just, it's amazing, isn't it? How the nth we have to go, I am normal. It's fine. It's like I'm not going to bite.
It is interesting, though, you telling that story, because what I get from that story is obviously there's a vulnerability in that able-bodied students' experience there as well. You know, they were nervous about doing something wrong. They were nervous about approaching the subject.
Nervous about touching my feet.
You know, getting into your getting into your personal space and stuff. And so I suppose, again, that's what's great about your kind of approach, Jenny, is that you give people the space to have that vulnerability and be open about their curiosity without challenging them or without making people, because I do think people feel bad for being curious.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely different levels of curiosity. And some people just genuinely want to know how I transfer and get into bed, or how I managed to do the cooking, or how I managed to put my shoes on, or whatever it may be. Just general questions where they just think, oh yeah, how do you do that? And I think there isn't really a space for people to ask these questions. So why not make a space, and why not make a safe environment where people do feel comfortable to be able to say, oh, I can ask Jenny how she does it.
Have you come across any newly disabled people who have sort of come across your account and gone, actually, you've really helped me, and that kind of thing yet? Or
yeah, quite a lot. I'll get people asking for recommendations of products and things, whether it be wheelchairs or certain adaptations. But then some people are just it's really nice to see a young girl. It's normally girls in the mid-20s, they'll say, I don't know anyone like me who I've ever seen in real life. I don't know what the hell is going on with my life. This is a huge change, overnight. I don't know what on earth to do with myself. Because when you're able-bodied, you're in that mindset of oh, I've got all this freedom and I can do everything. And then all of a sudden you already have this preconception of what disability is. And you just think that your life is doomed. Because I did, honestly, I sat in bed thinking, what the hell am I going to do now? What on earth am I going to do? And it wasn't until I started to undo all of these preconceptions, which I'd always grown up thinking, that I realised that actually I can do whatever I want to. I can do whatever I want to do. I get to decide. So it was a strange one, but I do get lots of girls who say, "Oh, thank you so much. You've given me a bit of hope to realise that it's not all doom and gloom. I mean, there is lots of doom and gloom, but there is still lots of good things too."
Is there anything that, now that you're disabled, you look back at your able-bodied life and you go, oh, that's better now. I'm not, now I'm disabled, I don't have to do that anymore, kind of thing? Because I know that a lot of people go, when they acquire a disability, like, I can't do this, that, and the other anymore. But is there anything on the other flip side where you go, oh, thank God I don't have to do that anymore?
Yeah, do you know what it is? I always have clean shoes.
You see? Not all bad.
I always look brand new, and people are like, "Oh, I like your new shoes," and I'm like, "Yeah, the 2-year-old."
Wow.
I could sell them on as unworn. Nothing on the sole.
Keep the labels on the bottom. Nobody knows. They can't see. But I always think to myself, I wonder if people who've acquired their disability goes, oh well, actually it's not so bad because I can now do, all this stuff that I could never do before. So,
I mean, even without an acquired disability, my favourite thing, and it's not so much now, but when you could go out into the world and stuff, people would always bring me my coffee. I never had to carry my coffee to my chair. They'd be like, Oh, take a seat. We'll bring it over. Every single. If they didn't, I was surprised. And there's definitely more than one occasion where the other barista behind the bar would be like, "Oh no, don't worry. You go sit down. We'll bring it to you." I'm like, "Awesome.
Thank you very
I'll
much.
go and sit
Yeah,
down."
thank you.
Yeah.
That is the thing, actually. People do buy me drinks.
Yeah.
When I'm in the pub, people buy me drinks. Someone even gave me a tenner before. I said, "What's that for?" And I'm like, "Oh, because you're disabled." And I was like, "I'll take it."
Yeah, absolutely.
I once got a bag of Maltesers.
But if you want to be that ridiculous, like, I'll take it.
Yeah, I once got a bag of Maltesers because I was disabled, and a
Yeah.
colouring book from the Salvation Army. Who she went, "Do you want a colouring book?" And I went, "I'm 23, but all right then. Thank you very much."
I'll have it.
I was going to say no to
If
free
it's free,
stuff.
I'll have it. Thank you very much. No, it's really interesting to sort of sit and talk to somebody who obviously hasn't been disabled all their life and gone, "What do you really like about being disabled?" Because I don't think that question is asked often enough. In fact, I can't remember the last time I heard somebody go, "Yeah, actually I'm disabled, but it's not that bad because I can do, X, Y, Z." Even though we do have to put up with strangers who ask stupid questions before giving you the tenner. It's not all that bad, is it really?
No,
Can't
definitely
believe you
not.
got given a tenner. That's awesome.
Yeah, I remember it vividly. It's like, "Oh, there you go." I was like, "What? What's going on?" Because you're disabled. I was like, "I'm not even going to get into this argument. I'm just taking the tenner off you and I'm going."
You want to waste your money throwing it at random people sitting down?
What you do, Jenny, just get like one of them charity tins and just put it on the side of your chair and just put like Jenny's gin fund or something.
Well,
you would.
We went to Newcastle before, me and all the girls, like well over a year ago now, and we always joke about that when someone gave me a tenner. So I'd got out of my wheelchair and I was sat on like in a booth. So my friend was like, "Can I have a go of your wheelchair?" And I was like, "Yes, Lauren, take it."
Name checking, Lauren.
So she's in this wheelchair and she's like near the toilets, like whizzing round and saying to people, "Oh, have you got like a quid or anything? Can I have a quid?" And everyone's like, "No, like what I'm disabled." That's what that's what happens. I was just like, "Oh, for crying out loud!" It happened once. Someone gave me a tenner.
Yeah.
Now my friend whizzing around Newcastle in a wheelchair, pretending that she's disabled, and then she jumps up out of the chair, and I obviously get back into the chair, and then people think I'm faking it now because we're all swapping around in the chair, and I'm
It's absolutely brilliant.
I don't know.
Jen, before we finish our little interview, it's been really, really good to talk to you actually and get to know you a little bit more. Is there anything you want to sort of promote? We give you the platform to promote and anything that you've got or any projects you're working on. Now's your time to do it if you want to.
Other than me and Wheelie Good Life and all red cord campaigns and petrol station campaigns.
And Wheelie Good Life, is that on like all the social medias?
Yeah, Wheelie Good Life on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter.
Fabulous. We'll make sure we put all those links up on our resource page of our website.
Thank you very much for coming on, Jenny. It's been really fun.
Yeah, it's been really good fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Oh,
yeah, my first podcast.
Oh, fabulous! So we've popped your cherry. So thank you so much, Jenny, for your time. I know you're extremely you're busy, so thank you so much for joining us today.
No, you're welcome. It's been good.
All right, thanks everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the lABLEd podcast. If you like the show, please rate, review and subscribe. You can follow us on social media at lABLEd podcast.
Our thanks go to our editor Adam Hall, our music composer Maisie Crunden, and our graphic designer Sarah Coley.
We'll see you next time.